Russia's President Vladimir Putin is in China this week, so I want to use this chance to talk about Russia-China relationship from a Chinese perspective. I'm not going to bring any speaker today because I think most of the Chinese intellectuals think about Russia roughly the same way. So I'm just going to condense their thoughts together into one short video. Some of them also, when they speak, they get a little bit too patriotic, even for my taste. So I don't think it's appropriate for my Western audience here. You might get them confused. And also, I'm not going to talk much about Ukraine. Actually, I'm not going to talk about Ukraine at all. You can find other videos on the subject to be more helpful. So let's get to it. I'm going to put timestamp down below. I do want you guys to focus a little bit more on the subject of trade when I come to that topic. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to ask you guys an ideological question. See what you guys think about it. I'm a little bit confused, rather. But let's see, maybe there's someone very philosophical that can give me some answer. Let's go. When we talk about the relationship between two major powers on the planet, such as Russia and China, we must consider the global geopolitical environment landscape of the present. Today's geopolitical landscape is defined as US, the current global hegemon, try to maintain its hegemony by all means necessary. The actions US took over the past few years have shown its determination and desperation in maintaining that hegemony. So China must position itself to have a posture to counteract against US containment strategy. When smaller countries talk about geopolitics, they often emphasize on international right. But major powers such as China, when we approach geopolitics, we think about leverage. We think about countermeasures. How do you make sure another great power do not put a dagger to your throat? This is why it is difficult sometimes to talk about Ukraine to certain people. Now, here's the three main themes. US would try to keep all countries within the dollar system and sanction fell and regime change those who break the rule-based international order, whatever that is. US would try to contain China and ultimately disintegrate or vassalize China, or both. US will also launch proxy wars and covert operation to reach its goal. So that's the three main themes. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I will make another video in the future about China-US relationship going forward. And I think that will be an interesting video. China, during this period, will try its best to maintain good relationships with countries around the world. Continue trade, investment, and cooperation. China believes that time is on its side and believes one day US will have to come to its senses and change its global strategy. Even if the US is not willing to do so, reality will eventually force it to change. Now, let's go into Russia. He just inaugurated his new term. He makes several adjustments to his cabinet, including the new defensive minister. And he brought many of his cabinet members to China as well during this trip. The relationship between China and Russia at its historical height, and will even improve more over time during the two presidents' term. Since both men became president, they have met a total of 43 times. If you do the math, it is roughly 4 times a year. I personally used to work around the world, mainly between Europe and China, while my wife and my kids live here in the United States. And I travel usually twice a year to the United States to visit them. So here, Xi Jinping and Putin travel to meet each other more often than I travel to meet my wife and my kids. So you can see how close the two persons' relationship is at this point. A stable Russia. China and Russia share over 4,200 kilometers of borders. China wants Russia to remain stable internally. A destabilize or disintegrate Russia will challenge China's northern borders. If Russia disintegrates, it is likely that US will try to install puppet regime in the newly established states, and this will challenge China's security from the north. This is great power politics here, so I understand some people probably in Europe will not understand or agree to what I say here, but I come to accept that something and some thoughts cannot be translated. So let's leave it at that. I think the people who are living in eastern part of Russia, please correct me if I'm wrong, Russians, they were never considered, from my understanding, countries or individual states in history. The term of statehood is actually new. They were more like tribals. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. So if Russia disintegrated, it will take a long time for these people to build their own statehood, as they are not experienced in it. And this is a time in which US can place insurgency and install puppet regimes. When I talk to some European friends of mine who hate Russia, they will tell me that this is a good time for China to expand its territory into the north, to reclaim those territory that China lost to Russia. And when Russia collapses, you can integrate all those regions into Greater China and grab all those resources. Don't waste your time on Taiwan. Focus on Russia. I was like, the Chinese don't really think that way. We're productive. We can trade for the things we need. We don't need to go to war and start invasions, all right? Now, let's move to Central Asia countries. There are many Central Asia countries located west to China, including Afghanistan and Kazakhstan. Any relationship between Russia and China is vital in maintaining the peace and security of those countries, reducing the risk of US insurgency. So if Russia and China is not friendly with each other, it will fight over influence and provide the opportunity for foreign powers to destabilize the region as well. So that's not good. Since Russia and China right now trust each other, it will be easier for both countries to build good relationship with those Central Asian countries without unsettling the other country at the same time. Now, I want to talk about greater diplomacy to the world. A China-Russia diplomatic alliance will act as some kind of a stabilizing force to the world, as we believe. First, I want to make sure that this is not a military alliance, at least not yet. I'm not sure about the future. China and Russia both have reasonably good relationship with the global south and can cover each other's back if there's a diplomatic weakness. So for example, China has tricky relationship with India, but when tension escalate, China can ask Russia for help to reach to India for off-ramp. For Russia, sometimes its relationship is tricky with the ex-Soviet Central Asia states. China will be able to ease those tensions when the time comes, so we can help each other. And I can ask anyone if they can tell me if there's a single country in the global south right now that is both hostile to Russia and China at the same time. I can't think of any. Maybe the Philippines? I'm not sure about Philippine-Russia relationship. And then perhaps some banana republic countries in Central America, which is more or less politically completely controlled by the Americans. So I'm not too sure. If somebody have any idea that there's a global south country that hate Russia and China both, please let me know. So a strong Russia-China diplomatic tie will reach good relationship with almost all the country in the global south. In addition, China still maintain healthy relationship with at least half of the country in the Western world as well. So if Russia need to reach someone they can reach because of the current ongoing Ukraine war, China can help with that as well. Oh, almost forgot, North Korea. A lot of Western people think North Korea are just Chinese pet, a vassal state. That's not true. China-North Korea relationship is actually not that good, especially after North Koreans acquire nuclear weapons. I would argue often that South Korean relationship with China might be better for most of the time than the relationship with North Korea. However, relationship between North Korea and Russia has always been pretty good. So if North Korea get very upset with US aggression in the area, Russia can play alongside of North Korea, and China can stay back and maintain a good relationship with both South Korea and Japan. Now, we move to energy security. China has a very diverse energy supply. However, due to the ongoing geopolitical tension, China is forced to rethink its energy strategy, okay? Here's a graph. This is a Chinese top oil supplier in 2023. In this graph, as you can see, Russia is already the biggest supplier of oil to China, 19%. But again, most of Chinese current oil supply is still in the Middle East, okay? But due to the political turbulence in the Middle East and uncertainty in the future, China will likely to lean on supplier that's closer to China. Malaysia, Vietnam, and Russia will be preferred. There is also oil reserve in the Caspian Sea. However, there's a lack of infrastructure, making those oils difficult to access. This means that China will have to lean on Russia more for oil supply. Same thing goes with natural gas. Natural gas is a vital fossil fuel to replace coal, which is more friendly to the environment. Many Chinese cities today still rely on coal to produce power. This causes a loss of air pollution, so it's good to replace those coal electricity with natural gas. China produces roughly half of the natural gas it needs domestically. However, in order to reach the goal of cleaner energy source, it is increasing its consumption of natural gas, and China is seeking for more import of natural gas from Central Asia and Russia. All right, let's talk about trade. And I think this is the most important topic of today's video, all right? China-Russia trade. This is very important, I think, for Europeans to understand what I'm trying to say here. If you remove biased ideological thinking, the current China-Russia relationship in terms of trade is considered the most healthy. All right, let me tell you what I mean by this. In 2023, China-Russia reached 240 billion US dollar worth of trade volume. And the real number is actually much higher because many trades were done in the shadow to avoid Western sanctions. In comparison, okay, maximum trade between Russia and EU was around 370 billion. That's before 2014. And that was also before UK left the EU. So the calculation is different in that case. So China's trade is actually getting close to the peak of Russia-EU trade before 2014. According to prediction, China-Russia trade will surpass EU-Russia trade within 1 to 2 years, if it has not already surpassed it already. And US Secretary of State Blinken is very pissed off at the moment because of China-Russia trade. And he has the right to be pissed off, by the way. Let me talk about this. So I talked to many European friends at the beginning of this war, and they are all saying that Russia is going to collapse after the sanction hits. And I tell them, no, that's probably not going to be the case. China will be there to back Russia, all right? Now, initially, my European friends, and they are all entrepreneurs and general managers, these are supposed to be very well-educated people, but I don't know what they're thinking. You know what they told me? They said something like this. They said, it doesn't matter if China is stepping in to help Russia. Russia will still collapse because the void that Europe left behind is too big for China to fill. They said that to me. I'm not kidding. The Chinese businessmen are laughing their ass off, okay, when they see the Europeans, leave Russian market, they're like, yeah, go. Bad Russia. Russia is very bad, not trustworthy, just leave. And when they left, Chinese business are like, oh, yes, all those markets are ours. So I have no idea what they are talking about, to be honest. I swear I watched either it was Bloomberg or CNBC news at the beginning of the sanction hit, and a lot of German business were affected, right? And all their contracts got canceled. So there was this TV anchor were interviewing those German business who lost all this business and contract, and they were like, it's not going to work. The Chinese are going to take all our business, which is true. This is exactly what's happening, okay? That's why I love Germans, to be honest. They are the most realistic people in Europe, in my opinion, okay? The most grounded people. I'm not talking about German leadership. Those are US puppets, many of them. But the regular German people, they're very realistic, grounded, like I said. Let's talk about this Russia-China trade a little bit more. People have to understand that trade is not always beneficial to both parties. The China-Russia trade is considered very balanced and also extremely healthy to both economy and its people. Very important. I will make a comparison here. I talked a little bit about EU-Russia trade. What Russia is giving to China in a trade is real stuff. Gas, oil, minerals, and all those real items. That is vital of a country's economy and industry. What China is giving back to Russia is also real stuff. Affordable consumer goods, manufacturing goods, TV, cell phone, all kinds of indoor decoration, furniture, cars, those things. These are things that improve standard of living for normal people in both countries. Another example, which is not so healthy, is, for example, if Russia sells 3 million euro worth of natural gas to Europe, and Europe sell one Bugatti Chiron here to one Russian oligarch. So that trade only benefit one Russian oligarch and perhaps the supermodel that he's humping in the car also. So that kind of trade is not beneficial to the public and drive inequality in society because Russia sells its national asset and the people are not enjoying the benefit of that sales. Let's look at the numbers, okay? During the peak of Russia-EU trade, Russia export 240 billion worth of stuff, gas, oil, those kind of thing, to EU. However, EU is only able to export 130 billion of stuff to Russia, including all the overpriced items like, Chanel purse and all those things. There's over 100 billion worth of trade surplus Russia is running against the EU, which is a huge amount. It is a good understanding in trade. It is best to have a win-win situation for both parties. So it's important for the trade to be balanced, not imbalanced. It's not good for either party to run an imbalanced trade relationship for a long period of time. For the case such as EU and Russia, what happened is Russia is giving a lot more to Europe than Europe is giving to Russia. And Europe have to use currency. I'm gonna use currency here to cover the extra purchase, okay? In an imbalanced trade relationship, it is usually Europeans that are benefiting in the short run. So Russia here is getting a short change. So what Europe is having Russia to do is to YOLO back those trade deficit. The currency, YOLO those currency back. I will talk more about this in my next video. So it doesn't have to pay for the real stuff. How they do it is usually have, the Russian government or Russian oligarch to buy bonds, invest into housing market in London, drive up the cost, stock market, football clubs that can even win a title. This drive up asset costs and make drive up also inequality in both countries, in Russia and in places like United Kingdom, okay? And make European business less competitive. And Russian normal people are not really benefiting from it. And Putin actually explained this in some kind of surprise, I think, in one of the Sochi speech he gave. He find out that, trading with China is actually more beneficial and healthy to the Russian economy. Now, let's look at the numbers. Russia export 129 billion to China, and this is limited because the infrastructure is not there. China, at the same time, export 111 billion to Russia. As you can see, the trade gap is not that big, okay? The trade is much more balanced, and China is giving Russia customer more value for the money. So for Chinese, if we want to get more Russian energy, we need to find more ways to make our products better so Russian customer can buy more from us and reach a higher standard of living. So it's better than those customers who buy a lot from you and owe you a lot of purchasing power and then start to demonize you and start a proxy war against you as an excuse not to pay the bill. So working with China is the better case here. It's interesting because the Europeans are like getting a free ride from cheap energy from Russia, and now they kick that supplier away. Hold on, let me think about what is a good reference in that case. It's like Europeans having a free Russian energy credit card, and they use and not have to pay really that much for it. And now they rip the credit card apart and say that they're free from that evil credit card. So that's what they're saying basically, which is quite ridiculous to my understanding. And I mean, the Indians are basically laughing right now, getting all those cheap Russian gas, Ooh, do you want some Indian gas now, huh? How it feels like is like Europe is going through some kind of great leap culture revolution, like in China back in the 1960s and 1970s. People become very ideological. Do not get those evil Russian Soviet dictator gas. So we need to get freedom, democracy gas from the Americans. And even smell better. If you go to Las Vegas today, the entire city, all right, smells like marijuana, weed. And it's not like that 10, 20 years ago, but today the whole city just stinks. Maybe those natural gas from America also smell like weed. You can enjoy it, maybe. So the future of Russia-China trade. China has huge demand for energy. Russia is a wonderful supplier. Okay, we have 1.4 billion people. We can consume a lot of Russian energies and minerals. So you're not going to run out of customer anytime soon. And China, being the biggest manufacturing powerhouse on the planet, we will give you the best value for your money, for your material, for your, and oil. And we can give you the best manufacturing product that money can buy. So Russians can enjoy a higher standard of living, a good life. It's a win-win situation, all right? Perfect trade relationship. We can also visit each other to boost our tourist economy. Now, let me just emphasize a little bit more on what might be a more toxic trade relationship, all right? For example, if Russia sell China weapons, and eventually China will have enough weapons, right? Because we're not going to war with anyone. So Russia, Putin will be thinking like, okay, how do we get China to buy more of our weapons? So Putin will be, Vietnam is very aggressive people run by an evil regime. And they're about to host 50 United States military base there. And it's a threat to you. You need to invade and liberate those poor Vietnamese, all right? And if Xi Jinping take the bait and invade Vietnam, the Russians and Putin will be like, oh, we have them on the hook. This war will last 20 years and we can just keep selling them weapons to balance our trade deficits. That's kind of what US is doing to many parts of the world. Europeans basically funded the Vietnam War, if you look at history and the economy of that. The Chinese kind of funded a lot of the war in the Middle East by keep buying US bonds, and the Saudis had been directly funding the Yemen war for more or less the same reason. It's just trying to blow up all those extra US dollars. Now, take a look at the new gas pipeline. The original power of Siberia have to go around Mongolia, as you can see, because the relationship with China, Mongolia, and also Russia, Mongolia hasn't been that good. So the pipeline have to go around and enter China from the north. But the north of China, in that entry point, is actually not very populated. So it's a problem. The new line, the power of Siberia 2, goes straight past Mongolia into the heartland of China, which is very much densely populated. And we can remove a lot of the coal-driven power plant with natural gas. There will be well over 200 million populations who can enjoy those Russian natural gas. But again, I mean, hey, Europeans, don't be jealous. It's Russian gas, right? They stink, all right? They smell like dictators' armpit. They're cheap, but smells bad, okay? Let the Chinese, let us suffer the Russian gas so you can buy more American, rosy, favorite gas. I want to end today's video by asking a more philosophical questions that I've been thinking. Today's Russia and Chinese leadership, also the intellectuals of both countries, are very in sync in our perspective of the world and the direction in which the world should head towards. Both leaders, Xi Jinping and Putin, talked about in different occasions how the world should be occupied by sovereign civilization state who work with each other and coexist peacefully, tackle global problems. I don't want to sugarcoat this too much, but try to find balance among sovereign state is more or less, I think, what they mean. Now, the one that is promoted by US, and I won't even say this is US based because people refer them to be the globalist elite, because whatever entity we are referring to do feel like they are cross-border. And from how I investigate and look into this group, I feel like they are loyal not to a particular country, not even to US, but loyal to perhaps the US dollar, or try to control the fiat currency or whatever CBDC that's coming out in the future. They probably want the world to be run like EU, in which a bunch of unelected elites actually control the real politics, and countries run symbolic election to choose prime minister, president, whatever. In reality, those PM and president don't hold that much power to begin with, and the candidates that go into the elections are often controlled by the elites to begin with. So whoever you choose, they're usually part of the ruling elite already. And if there's a candidate that does not belong to that group, they will be demonized and get kicked out before they have a chance to win. It's like turning the entire world into some kind of huge banana republic, I'll say. Almost sound like some kind of neo-colonialism endgame to me. That's just my theory or guess. And I would like to ask what you guys think about this. I will end the video here and let me know what you think.